Well, hello everyone. Today I've got a big, huge wrap up for you. I didn't do a September wrap up because I didn't read a lot in September. And then I read a little bit more in October. So it's a big one. We're going to dive in. You might be here for a while. So like, get cozy, get cozy. Hopefully you've read some of these books and loved them. I had like a mixed reading month, so we'll just dive in. The first book I want to chat with you about is Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. So I listened to this on audio and I ended up giving it 3 stars. So Things We Do in the Dark follows a woman named Paris. She married a comedian, a fairly famous comedian. He was an older man. And she is found by the police by his dead body. There is blood everywhere. She is holding a razor. It appears that there were slashes all over him. And she is brought, of course, to prison or jail. And they are questioning her, like, what happened to your husband? And did you do something terrible to him? So we follow her, and then we also are following her in her past as well. She has secrets from her past that she doesn't in any way want brought up. Paris is actually not her real name. She changed it after some events that happened 25 years ago. So you follow her then and now. I feel like this is a really good kind of introduction to thrillers. If you're new to thrillers, I think this would be a really great way to get into them. I didn't guess the ending, or who done it, I should say. And so that was kind of fun for me. I like having that every once in a while when you don't guess. That's just a joy. So I enjoyed it. I just wasn't blown away, but I do recommend it for sure, especially for people who are new to thrillers. The next book I just really enjoyed. This is The It Girl by Ruth Ware. This is her new one, and it follows a group of university students going to Oxford. So we follow this group of friends, Hannah and Will, who like end up getting married 10 years later. We follow Ryan and Emily and Hugh, and then we follow April, who is kind of like the leader of the group. She is the it girl. Everyone wants to be her or be around her or date her. And we're really following Hannah through this book while she is actually April's roommate. And then 10 years later, when she's married to Will, they are pregnant with their first child. And what happened to April was she was murdered at Oxford. Hannah found the body, and it really, really devastated Hannah. And she believed that the porter at Oxford, John Neville, was the killer. She saw him leave the building just before she found April's body. And so she was like, absolutely, that's it. And she, went to court to essentially say that this is the guy that I believe did it. And then he dies in prison. John Neville dies in prison, and it appears that he might not have done it. New evidence is found, and it looks like John Neville had nothing to do with it. And of course, Hannah is devastated, racked with guilt, and also is very upset that there's a killer still out there. And she wants to, avenge April's murder. And so she starts digging and digging and digging. And I loved this book. I thought it was so atmospheric. I felt like I was walking the grounds of Oxford through this. It was also so wonderful to read this in September. This is a book that I read in September. I get that like back to school feeling in September. So I was just so happy to read this then. Now, I will say I found April as a character quite annoying. She was not the nicest person in the world. And basically everyone had a motive to kill her because she was quite nasty sometimes. So that proved to be kind of fun too. So I so recommend reading The It Girl. It's definitely one of my favorite of Ruth Ware. So yeah, I think it might be my favorite actually. I think it just is her best yet. It's a bit of a chunker, 400-ish pages, but worthwhile. The next book I want to share with you is so perfect for October, for like a creepy time of year. This is the Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. I gave this 4 stars. Just love Simone St. James. It's very much like light horror. So in this book, we are following Shay, who is who works at a doctor's office during the day as a receptionist, but then at night she has this true crime blog that she invests like her heart and soul into. And she actually is able to interview a woman, Beth Greer, who was said to be the lady killer. There is someone who was going about in the 70s killing men in Oregon. And for many, many years, people thought it was Beth Greer. People still do think that it's Beth Greer, but the police could never find anything that tied her to these murders. So she went off free, and she still lives in the house that she always lived in, where her parents, you know, raised her and where she grew up. She still lives there all of these years later, but she doesn't really talk to anyone until Shay approaches her and she says yes. And so Beth invites Shay to come over to her house, and she does. And the house is so creepy, like so creepy and haunted. I loved all of the scenes in this house. It was also really great to be rooting for Shay. It's so easy to root for her through this. She herself had a fairly traumatizing experience happen to her as a child that she has been running from and grappling with into her adulthood. And it's something that she doesn't talk about a lot. And it's through this book that you see her like work through that. So there's a really great character arc, story arc for Shay as well as Beth. I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. I really, really enjoyed that one. The next book, I don't know what to make of. It's Hidden Pictures by Jason Rukulak. I'm probably saying that name wrong, and I apologize. I never gave this a star rating because I didn't know what to make of it. It was very readable. So I will just say Hidden Pictures is a thriller about a woman who has had a troubled past. She was addicted to drugs in the past. She has gone through all of the steps. She is recovered, and she wants to become a nanny for this wealthy family at this like beautiful home for their son. And so she gets the job, somehow gets the job, and starts working there. Her charge, this little kid who's so sweet, starts drawing these extremely, extremely disturbing pictures of like a man killing a woman, like very disturbing. And she doesn't know what to make of it. And that's the premise of this book. It was so readable. I was enjoying it so much, but I will say there is absolutely the trope here that I hate. It drives me absolutely nuts about the infertile woman, the infertile man are the bad guys. It drives me so nuts when that happens. As someone who's dealt with infertility, you guys know Nora is an IVF baby. Like, it's such an annoying trope that comes up again and again, and it's hurtful to, I don't know, it just is hurtful to me. And maybe I'm just being overly sensitive. That's very possible, but it just feels like I keep seeing it on repeat. I don't read a lot of books where a woman or a man dealing with infertility is like the good guy. Anyway, it might just be me. But the reason that I could not give this a star rating is because I felt like it was problematic, not only with that, but also with trans rights. So I'd actually really love to hear from a trans person, their perspective on this book. I don't want to give anything away because it's, you know, part of the plot. But I felt like there was just a few things that seemed problematic to me, and I love that perspective to get more of an opinion, because I was about to give this 1 star, but I might have a strange perspective, or just maybe I'm overthinking things again. All that to say, don't know if I can suggest this to you or not. I really don't. Moving on. Okay. We'll just move on from there. Oh yes, I don't have that in my possession. The Secret Place by Tana French. This was the second to last book in the Dublin Murder Squad series. I ended up giving this 3 stars. It takes place at a girls' school. Some of the girls go home after school, and some of the girls actually end up staying at the school and boarding at the school. And so we follow a group of 4 girls who stay at the school overnight and, you know, have their own little relationships with each other. They're quite close-knit. And we're following this group of girls as well as 2 detectives who are investigating the murder of one of the boys who lived at another school, a boys' boarding school. And they're interviewing all of the girls essentially at our girls' boarding school about this murder. And I really feel like Tana French got into the mind of teenage girls. Almost to the point where I was like, I don't want to be back there again. Like, I am so happy to be 41. There was a lot of drama in high school. You feel me? So, but I felt like she got so many things right. It was very atmospheric. I felt like I was walking the halls. I felt like I was in their minds and back there again sometimes. But I also, after a while, because it is set in one place and sometimes one room for a very extended period of time, I was kind of ready for like a new scene, new things to look at. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. Still very, very good. Probably should up it to 4. Oh my gosh, this next one was absolutely a wild, crazy ride. Sign Here by Claudia Lux. I am so happy that she's writing. This was a lot of fun. It's her debut. I give this 4 stars. This follows a man who works in hell, literally hell, and he is trying to rise up the ranks in hell. And hell is this funny place. Some of it is absolutely terrifying. There are like different levels. The lower levels, like really bad stuff is happening to you. Very, very bad. But as you rise the ranks, and he's like closer to the top now, hell is essentially things like the coffee maker never works. If you try to write something with a pen, it won't work until like you're the 3rd or 4th pen you try. Like just those little nagging, annoying things that happen in everyday life just happens constantly in this level of hell that he's in. So his job is essentially to bring people to hell. He goes to earth and has people sign away their souls. And it's just so funny. You follow him and a couple of other characters who are his co-workers essentially. And he is now nearly going to have this chance to like move up the ranks. If he gets one more soul from a particular family, the Harrison family. So you follow him, and then you follow one of the kids of the Harrison family. They are going to stay at their cottage for, I think it's a month or 2. And so you follow her along with her friend that she invites up. You follow her brother and then her parents. And there's all sorts of drama and mystery surrounding the Harrisons as well, and the Harrisons' past and what happened at that cottage in the past. And I didn't expect it to have twists and turns. I just thought it was going to be really, really funny and dark, but it was funny, dark, and then also a mystery that I did not see coming, and then the twists and turns within it I did not see coming. So I enjoyed this so much. It was so much fun. Great one to read at Halloween. Absolutely. editing April coming in. I forgot to mention that I gave this 4 stars. Highly recommend. Next is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Susan Collins. So this is part of the Hunger Games world, and it's a prequel in which we follow President Snow as a teenager. He lives in the capital with his sister and I think his grandmother. Anyway, but they're actually not as rich as I had imagined they would be. He is witnessing the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games are about to start. They have decided as a society to start introducing mentors for the people who are going to be in the Hunger Games, these kids who are going to be in the Hunger Games. And Snow is one of them, and he ends up getting mentoring a girl from District 12, and he is very drawn to her. She's very interesting and charismatic, and he's trying to have her survive the Hunger Games for her own sake, but also for his own sake. And so it's interesting to kind of see the descent of Snow's character into complete just, you know, horridness, because at the beginning you're kind of like, he's not that bad, and then he, you know, as it goes on, you see him descend. And it's also interesting to see how the Hunger Games was then, and then his role in making the Hunger Games what it came to be when Katniss was in the Hunger Games. I enjoyed it. It kind of went on a little too long. Like, I'd say the Hunger Games itself ended like halfway through, and then there was a whole bunch more, and I could have done without that. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. It was just fine. A book that I just finished listening to on audio is Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. I gave this 3 stars. It was very interesting. This follows a woman whose mother is dying, and she was not close to her mom at all growing up, but she has this sense of responsibility, and she goes home to her mom. Now, this twist to this is that she grew up in this house that her father built with his own hands, and she was very close to her father as a child, but found out, and everyone found out, that he was actually a serial killer and murdered a lot of men. And you find out how she comes to learn about this, and how the town comes to learn about this. And when she arrives home, of course, no one wants her there. A lot of people blame her for some of her father's actions and feel like she had a role in it. Very interesting. And this was really an interesting perspective that I don't think you get a lot of, the perpetrator's family and that link to the perpetrator when you have a positive interaction with that person. Yes, he murdered someone, horrible, but you have seen a side of him that was good for you, and it explores that. Not that that's right, but it explores that, and it also explores her connection and love for this house where she grew up, but also where men were being murdered in. So it was interesting. I gave it 3 stars. I liked it. I liked especially where it went in the end. I thought that was really interesting. You'll know when you get to it. And then the last book that I want to share with you that I read is Salem's Lot. Now, I did a whole reading vlog where I read this and, you know, cooked stuff and chatted with you as I explored it. So I'm not going to talk too much about it here, but this is about vampires and Stephen King's take on that story. Very much like a classic vampire story. It follows a man who grew up in Salem's Lot, and he is coming back to the town itself, and also he wants to write, because he's a writer, he wants to write a fictional story about the Marston house, which is this old dilapidated house with a lot of horrible history to it. He himself has a terrible thing that happened to him at the Marston house when he was a child. And so he goes there, and then suddenly things are happening in this town, and it appears that there might be vampires who have moved in. I gave it 3 stars. I wasn't blown away, and I wasn't scared. But it was good. It was like, it was my mom's favorite Stephen King, and I can see why that one is a lot of people's favorites. I'm still a Pet Sematary fan over that one, but I enjoyed it. And I will link in the description box below my reading vlog, non-spoilery. I don't do spoilers in my reading vlog because I don't want to do that to you guys. So those are all of the books that I wanted to update you guys about and what I've read as of late. Let me know in the comments below what you've been reading. Did you read any like full-blown terrifying books in October, and what were they? Because I want to know and then read them myself. I will talk to you very soon. Bye guys.